everyone. DreamYard has a new intro song, apparently.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. What happened to the old classic theme? That was interesting. But I'm Nick Cole, as always, from Chattanooga, Tennessee, United States. That's Gus Tomazelli down in Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil. Because the intro music might change, but we don't, because this is the only American and Brazilian sports podcast. Two countries, two Americas, all sports. Hope you all are doing well here on this February 26th, 2025. Gus, I know it hasn't been exactly the greatest of days for you.
No, it hasn't. Definitely, uh, mm, it's been chaotic to say the least. When you work for your uh, the team, when you work for a PR for a sports team, especially a team they have so much involvement, being a fan, that you were kind of like a reporter, a broadcaster, and now you're with the PR, you never dream face a situation like that. Of course, last year was no, it felt like that when we lost the derby, the rivalry game, and then we had that fight, and then the coach there's the coaching change, but then everything went well. We got the promotion, the title, the Paulista Cup. Oh, it is what it is. But now things are not going well. Rio Branco, third consecutive loss. But the thing that kind of you know makes me feel unease and even disappointed was the and I feel like there's sometimes I don't know if there's kind of like this in American sports, but when you, for example, the fans that were on this stands today, they were, even when the game, before the game even started, they were not engaged with the game. They were not there to support. They were there to criticize. Of course, they want their team to win, but they were not hopeful. They were not like feeling the team was gonna win.
Yeah, I mean,
And
that's kind of like 2019, 2020 Tennessee.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
remember the
exactly.
BYU game? Remember the BYU game right after Georgia State?
Yeah,
Just how uneasy that crowd was the entire
yeah,
night.
yeah.
It was. I
Or
mean,
no, I'll go even back further. 2017 Tennessee,
right. Like I remember that.
especially
Remember we wanted to boycott Southern Miss, and no one wanted to be there at all.
yeah. I feel
Yeah.
like right now what Rio Branco is feeling, because, for example, 2017 Tennessee, uh, the beginning of the season wasn't bad. Overtime win over Georgia Tech, win over Indiana State, ranked, going on the road to Florida. And by the end of the game, Tennessee had the lead. But then the Hail Mary changed everything. And then for then on, things didn't go well. There the coaching change, and now I feel like Rio Branco, it's struggling. Had a poor performance today. Deserved to lose 3-2 against Desportivo Brasil, which, by the way, has uh, I I feel like I should have showed you, but they are kind of owned by a Chinese group. Funny enough.
Interesting. So I know Rio Branco got off to a very hot start. Got off to a very hot start at the beginning of the season, but would you say they're just running into better competition? Are they running it into um, are they just running into a dry spell? Because I mean, moving up a division is super hard. And also shout out to Tanner, my friend Tanner, for liking the live on TikTok. We got folks watching on TikTok as well, on YouTube and Facebook. But Gus, I mean, to me, I was shocked that Rio Branco had such a hot start as they did going up a division. Because to me, I was wondering, would the rug be pulled out from underneath them? And to me, it sounds like that's what they're going through. And I mean, in all things considered, like they're still in a decent spot. I know it's hard right now, but I mean, it's free losses, but it's free games. And it wasn't like last year, as you said, they had a rough period too during the season, and they were able to get it together.
Exactly at the week 11 last year. Uh, yeah, between was kind of like in during that period between week 9, 10, 8, 9, and 10, where uh, Rio Branco lost a game to Francana, tie at home to Nacional, and then the coach expelled uh, from the game, got a red card, and then the next game he couldn't coach, and then his assistant coach a very big game, a rivalry game, and then there were the lost at the last minute because of a mistake by the goalkeeper, and then everything changed. But what's funny that Rio Branco was the last team undefeated in the third division of the state of São Paulo championship. But since that loss to Bandeirantes, the team kind of wasn't playing the same way, not being engaged the same way. Of course, there's still 4 games to be played. Uh, the Rio Branco would have been uh, in the playoffs today. Would have played Sertãozinho in the next round. But now all the we call here all the fat that Tennessee had, all the extra layer Rio Branco had in terms of the good hot start, it's over. There's no more margin to lose.
Right, and now you find out what this team is truly made of at this point in the season. Is this a team like last year that can buckle down and make the plays when they need to and come together as a unit? I know last year there was a coaching change that led to that. I know the same coach who led y'all to that title last year is still in charge. Do you have any sense that ownership is thinking about making a change there? Because I know in Brazilian soccer, there's a tendency when things go awry to make a change right on the spot.
I mean, the fans definitely is not. The fans are mad with him, especially because the game on Saturday he decided to change the entire starting 11, putting some of the players that were not considered starters, and there was a lot of movement of fans to go to that game on Saturday. That was on the road, but was like a 45-minute drive, and there were more than 200 fans that went by bus, by car to that game, and definitely were happy with the decisions that the coach made and the changes that he made with the team. Feeling the fans felt disrespected, kind of. They were like, "Hey, I drove 45 minutes, I paid a ticket, and the coach did not put the best team available." And that made the fans not, felt this kind of anger towards the coach.
I know you can't see it on your stream, Gus, but on the TikTok stream, Tanner just sent me sunglasses a gift. I don't know exactly how that's. I still don't really understand how TikTok lives work, but it makes me feel like an old man. But thank you for the gift, Tanner. To me, what it sounds like is I just wonder if maybe the coach thinks he's in a period. Excuse me, in a period of the season where he can make radical changes. He can kind of test drive some different lineups. We see this a lot right now with Tony Vitello with Tennessee baseball, where he's trying out different lineups because they haven't reached SEC play yet. And maybe your coach is trying to do the same thing with Rio
But
Branco. Although maybe the middle of the regular season when playoff spots are on the line, maybe that's not as wise compared.
but I mean, um, for example, he did that on the week 2, and I feel like the fans understood. It's like still the beginning of the season, long trip. And, he wants also to see what the other players. Fans understood, and what the fans were mad of is that it's like, for example, I'll make a football comparison. It's like if oh my god, I forgot the not Jamie. I remember Jamie Pruitt, the guy after him. Oh my god,
Uh, there wasn't a guy after Pruitt. It was Pruitt, then Heupel.
Heupel, Josh Heupel. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's like if Josh Heupel, for example, in a game against, let's say, uh, on a game on the road very far away against Montana State in week three decided to put, not the starters. You'll be like, okay, understand, it's a very far game. It's in the beginning of the season. But when you play tough competition or a game, for example, against Middle Tennessee, and a lot of fans go there and they put the reserves and then lose, then fans get really mad. And I feel like, I mean, I respect and definitely understand Leandro Medic's decision. He is our head coach and still is. And of course, I'm going to support him. I'm just telling the facts. I'm just laying out the facts.
I mean, I'm having trouble imagining the Vols going to a place like Montana State to play a football game, or MTSU, or
Yeah, I
Chattanooga.
know. I know. I'm
Now
making.
they've played at Memphis a couple of times.
Yeah, I
Oh,
know. I'm making some very very big stretch comparisons, but that I'm just trying to put a scenario. And of course, Saturday is a big game because it's against Itapirense, which is now in fifth place, literally with the same point, 16. So it's a head-to-head game. Like if your Bronco wants to qualify, that's it. This is it. That's the game.
yeah. So I hope Rio Branco can get things. I've been supporting them as the American ambassador all day
Yeah.
here.
Today you're the one wearing the jersey. I'm wearing my Mets jersey.
Absolutely. Because hey, we are here, we are in it, we're gonna win it. They're gonna win on Saturday, and they're gonna get back
Yeah.
at
I
you.
think I think you need I think you need to start watching again. You are our lucky charm.
Look, I haven't had any time to. I'll
I
try.
know, I know. You're a very busy man. Yeah, no,
I'll try
I,
to. They never lose when I watch, so I need to see.
yeah,
It's like Indy 11 is 1-0 when I'm physically in the stadium. They're 1-0 against MLS teams when I'm physically in the stadium.
yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But yeah, so Saturday, big game. Hopefully, Rio Branco can bounce back. So the big tournaments are finally starting in Brazil and South America. So we had the Copa Libertadores, the South American Champions League. Corinthians struggle with Universidad Central, which doesn't feel like the best version of the Venezuelan soccer. One of the players was clearly out of shape. Of course, Venezuela is known for not being good at soccer, but Corinthians struggle. Only,
I'm shocked they can even put up a soccer team in Venezuela, given
yeah,
all these societal issues.
yeah, I know, it's mind blowing. But I guess
I mean,
when
is it worse though than FC Austin losing to that one team from Haiti last year or the year before last?
no,
The
no,
long
that was peak. That was peak.
I mean, I still don't understand how that happened. Like,
Yeah,
how are
I
you an
know.
MLS team and you lose to a team from Haiti? I mean, it just with all the resources, the resource gap, the talent gap.
Yeah, no excuse.
Yeah.
And so Corinthians 3-2 advanced. Great performance by Yuri Alberto. Memphis Depay played good game as well, but the defense had some issues. The goalkeeper Hugo, which has been one of the best players, uh, you know, the past few weeks, made a mistake. But Corinthians, it's ahead in the round. In the third round, actually, I put first round is actually the second round, and advance to the third round, and they're gonna play the winner of Barcelona of Guayaquil. So Corinthians are now in the next stage. You're gonna play Barcelona of Guayaquil. Another Brazilian team that qualified to the next round of Libertadores, Bahia, won 3-0 at home versus the strongest. But the biggest upset was Boca Juniors, the traditional Boca Juniors, eliminated by the Peruvian team Alianza Lima, penalty kick. So big upset. Boca Juniors, always a traditional team, always is a blue blood of South American soccer, eliminated in the second round of
Something
the
getting fired over.
qualification of the. Remember, this is like the qualifications to the group stage. It's like the pre. It's like a pre Champions League, like a
I
pre
mean, that's
Libertadores.
crazy. I mean, that's kind of like it feels like a Santos situation.
Yeah, yeah. So that's kind of so that's so Corinthians and Bahia advancing to the third round of the qualification uh, of Libertadores to the group stage. Brazilian Cup happening as well. Just I feel like not uh, there's probably a few upsets. Sport losing to Operário from Mato Grosso do Sul. Big upsets. Like Sport, traditional team from the Northeast in the second division nationally, that was literally promoted to the first division this year, losing to a team that is in a state where there's no teams in the first three divisions. They are not good, so that was a big upset. As big upset, another big upset was uh, Concordia eliminating Ponte Preta as well. Big upset, but other than that, Fluminense got a big result. A-Nel, Vasco won as well. Oh, Grêmio struggled, but qualified on penalties. So some of the results of the Brazilian Cup in the first round uh, of the tournament. And last but not least, Neymar scored his second goal in his Santos return. Big, beautiful goal on a corner kick straight to the goal, and now we have the teams to the playoffs of both Rio and São Paulo state championship, which for me is what matters both. So the São Paulo state championship first division, the quarterfinals: Corinthians, Mirassol, São Paulo, Novo Horizontino, São Bernardo, Palmeiras, and Santos and Red Bull Bragantino. For me, I think the big four gonna qualify. Palmeiras almost was eliminated. It got a little help from Red Bull Bragantino winning Ponte Preta, and then they won against Mirassol, so they got in. And I believe they're gonna be the top. The big four are gonna be in the semifinals: Corinthians, Santos, São Paulo, and Palmeiras. In Rio, only Botafogo again another year. They're out of the semifinals. But I mean, literally, John Texter feels like it's not worth it to play the state championship. Botafogo in the last few years kind of ignored, doesn't care anymore about state championship. I mean, the year 2023 fans were not happy because there were no titles. They lost that incredible, Brazilian championship. But fans are like, okay, we can take not being good at the state championship if we got the titles that we got last year, the Brazilian Championship and the Libertadores. So Flamengo, Vasco, and Fluminense em Volta Redonda, semifinals of the Rio State Championship.
Yeah, definitely. It's exciting to hear Copa Libertadores and the Brazilian Cup in full swing, and some really surprising results there. But
yeah, and finally, right now, finally is kicking. It feels like the season is kicking off now. The Brazilian soccer, like it feels like it's in full mode. Finally.
absolutely. Okay, so kind of transitioning up to the United States, kind of not necessarily entering slow season yet, definitely far from it, but just wanted before we get into some college basketball here, of which I'm watching a quad box of games. I want to talk some college football real quick because there's some interesting storylines coming out here in this offseason. First and foremost, Nebraska canceled a series with Tennessee that was supposed to start next year. We were supposed to go to Lincoln in 2026. They would return the favor and visit Knoxville in 2027. Would have been the first matchups against the two teams since the 2016 Music City Bowl. However, Nebraska has canceled that those games because they, quote, needed the extra revenue from an extra home game in 2027 to fund renovations. Although a lot of people are pointing out this just seems to be an excuse to dodge a potential loss. So, and you got to remember too, Matt Rule also recently canceled a spring game for Nebraska because he, quote, didn't want other teams to see film of his players and go after them in the spring transfer portal. Do we believe Nebraska's reasonings for canceling the Tennessee series?
I don't know. It just feels like Nebraska is taking decisions that make them feel less than they were. It make it kind of takes the. Do you think? Do you still think Nebraska is a blue blood? Is a
No,
traditional powerhouse? No, and
no.
they're making decisions that even make this even further this argument.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's some people who argue Nebraska is still a blue blood. I'm sorry. If you were a blue blood program, you don't go 8 years without a bowl game. And then we're sitting here acting like 6 or 7 and 6 is a great season for Nebraska. No, I'm sorry. Nebraska is not a blue blood. It was a blue blood 30, 40, 50 years ago. Because some people that you ask, they think blue bloods are, they're not stacked. They're never changing. Like they stay the same. But the problem is things do change. Nebraska was a blue blood when they were the king of their conference. They were the king of their conference in the Big Eight, and they were competitive in the Big 12. But when they moved to the Big Ten, they were no longer the king of the hill. Nebraska could compete when their only competition was Oklahoma. Nebraska cannot compete when they got to deal with Ohio State and Michigan. I mean, think about this. Nebraska and Oklahoma were two big fish in a small pond once upon a time. Oklahoma now is a small fish in a very large pond. I have questions if they're going to be able to compete in the SEC long term. And Nebraska has not been able to compete at all in the Big Ten because they're in Lincoln, Nebraska. There's no talent in that state. It's hard to recruit kids to come to Nebraska. And from a resource standpoint, they just don't have what it takes to be on an elite level. They got Dylan Raiola, but what else do they have? And it just reeks like, basically to me, Nebraska's trying to pull an Indiana. They saw what Indiana did this year. They went 11-1 with an incredibly easy schedule and backed their way into the college football playoff. Nebraska's like, we can do the same thing. And Nebraska is basically thinking, if we can minimize, the amount of hard teams we play, that increases our possibility of getting into the playoffs. And that's why ultimately it was probably a mistake for the committee to put in Indiana and SMU over Alabama and another SEC opponent, because you just incentivized your teams to go with weaker schedules. And I said that at the time, and I stand by it. As funny as it was that Bama was left out of the playoffs, it probably just ruined the next decade of college football.
Yeah, yeah. I feel that it's it's a fair argument because it it makes athletic directors think twice in terms because and what's so funny, what it was the biggest argument for expanding the college football playoff is
That you
allow teams to play big games and don't fear about this ruining their season, right? That was the big argument.
Yes, that was the argument, that you could have losses and it wouldn't kill you at the end of the day. But when you look at these teams now, you look at what SMU and Indiana did, and they're like, wait, why do we have to play any hard teams? The commissioner's just going to put us in if we're 11-1 because you're going to have people running around screaming, oh, you got to be fair. You have to be fair to you have to be fair to all these teams. And to me, that incentivizes a team like Nebraska to dip out of a series like this. Like it's just ridiculous. I mean, I get, as I said, as Tennessee fans, as Tennessee alums, we were like, yeah, it's funny that Alabama got left out, but I really think it's going to disincentivize. Like if you're a team like Nebraska and your only way to make a college football playoff is to sneak into the playoffs with a weak schedule. Jason on the TikTok, he says Nebraska lol. Yeah, because freaking Nebraska, it just they're just so weak. And then like the spring game thing, like with Matt Rowland, they're not the only team, by the way. There's a ton of teams now. There's several who are canceling their spring games. Like for example, Steve Sarkisian, the coach of Texas, said the other day that we've already had to play 4 extra games that we don't normally play, being in the playoffs. Why do we need to hold a public spring game? Which doesn't make any sense because one, that spring game is a different team than the team you just took to the playoffs. And two, and this is an argument I've heard from other people, the spring game tends to be by far the cheapest opportunity for most fans to go see their favorite team. You know, we got
Yeah,
inflation. A lot of people don't have money to go to a game in the fall. Um, these spring games allow maybe, you can take your 5-year-old who maybe you don't want him going to like an extreme Alabama Tennessee environment because there's going to be profanities laced everywhere and it's going to be a hardcore environment. Yeah, but you can ease them in by taking them to the orange and white game. And yeah, you can still take them to like a game against Chattanooga, um, all that. And Jason Wyrick, he just commented on our YouTube stream saying, quote, "That doesn't make any sense. The spring game is to get reps for your guys who aren't locked into starting roles to evaluate them in game situations. Yes, and some guys rise to the occasion when there's 50,000 people watching them, and some will absolutely shrink. And it's the closest that you can get to a game. And just because you're scared that, oh, some team is looking at them for NIL purposes, newsflash, they were already. Do you think these teams don't already know that? Okay, so like if some team that doesn't have a quarterback and I can just throw money at any quarterback I want, I'd throw a couple million at Dylan Raiola. I don't need to see him in a spring game when I already know what he can do. Like, what players could Nebraska or any of these other teams could possibly be hiding to um, to justify getting rid of the spring game? Yeah, spring games are not exactly exciting, but
I always, when I was in the United States, I always loved the Tennessee Orange and White game because it goes back to the argument that you just made. It's a very cheap opportunity for a Tennessee football fans to experience Neyland Stadium because a lot of the people that goes to the orange and white games are fans that they lived on a paycheck to paycheck. They cannot afford because as amazing as it is to go to a Tennessee football game, it's costly. It's not a cheap thing to do.
yeah, and it's gotten incredibly expensive. And for as much great as good as Danny White has done, and Danny White has been incredible. The one criticism that I've been starting to hear more and more, and that's fair, is it's gotten incredibly more expensive to watch Tennessee sports. Now, that happens when your team is good. Like all Tennessee sports right now are just really, really good. Like it's going to be very expensive to watch a top 10 football team. It's very expensive to go watch a top 10 basketball team. It's expensive to go watch the baseballs play, the defending national champions. I mean, it's just the way that works. Having
It's
all
the
your
price
teams.
of success. The price of success in sports is, uh, in capitalism is supply and demand. When your team is good, more people want to watch them. If more people want to watch them, more people want to buy tickets. And if more people want to buy a limited amount of stuff, this stuff tend to increase the price.
Yeah, I just want to shout out real quick Nick Swanson, my former college roommate, for liking my TikTok live as you are listening to Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports, the only sports podcast talking about both America and Brazilian sports. We're talking about the Vols here and Danny White. And, I've heard the criticism of, it feels like every time we win a big game, it feels like I'm being asked to donate. It feels like I'm being asked to buy something else. There's the talent tax. You buy a ticket for UT Sports, there's a 10% fee added on. I hear that criticism, but at the same time, if we're gonna do NIL, if we're gonna do all this other stuff, how else are you supposed to compete? I mean, you got to raise money somehow. Like money just doesn't grow on trees. It's not there. Unlike the Kendrick Lamar song, there are no money trees.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those deals. But the spring game thing, and as Jason Wyrick says, every program has ESPN Plus. They have the film LMAO. I mean, yeah, like these, every player has film. Like they have their high school film. Like, and do you think these teams are stupid and they don't know that these players exist? Like it's never
Or
like
are we living in the 1990s, early 2000s, where um, you know, you had to be live at the stadium to see things? Now people have film from everything, like even minor league teams, even pee wee basketball.
you know what I think it is. I think part of it is college football coaches for the longest time were able to basically run their programs like dictators. And I think they're losing that grip because of all the things that are changing with NIL, with the lack of control over the players that they have anymore over their decision making. They're becoming more and more like NFL head coaches, and that's really making a lot of them upset. So they're trying to find ways to strike back. That's at least my theory on
And
it.
for example, I thought the spring practices were to finish off with the spring game to showcase what they practice. So it's literally going to have extra practices for what?
Right. Well, I mean, you're still going to practice the practice. Like they'll have those 15 practices. They're just not going to let anyone watch those practices, basically. So you're depriving your players of one extra time a year they get to play in front of their fans, even if they're playing themselves. So I don't agree with it. I think it's silly. Um, you know, and I guess screw the poor who can't go and watch your games. I guess that's the message that we are getting from teams like Nebraska, who are choosing. And that's what the funny thing is. Like you're so worried about renovations to your stadium, yet you're going to remove a game like Tennessee, a game that fans. And we all know the fans of Lincoln would come out in droves to watch them play Tennessee. That would be a sold out game. That would be a hard road environment for Tennessee. And instead, they're going to replace them with like Western Michigan or like Montana. You know, I mean, well, what's the sense in that? Like, really, what is the sense in removing this game from your fans? Where if you lose, like you lose close, you gain more respect than by blowing out a MAC team by 40.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I want to watch good college football in the regular season. Speaking of college football as well, in the transfer portal, Ricky Gibson, one of our starting cornerback at Tennessee, says he plans to enter the transfer portal. Now, from all reports, this seems to be a surprise and potentially a negotiation tactic for NIL because in the last month, Jamar McCoy, our star cornerback who came in from Oregon State last offseason, and Jason Warwick, surprise guest, crashing the pod.
Always is the best pod crasher ever.
Absolutely. Jason, I'm assuming that you want to hop in and talk about this whole situation, the spring games, Nebraska canceling, and all that jazz.
Yeah, look, you're looking at it from the wrong perspective. From Nebraska's perspective, they haven't had a game that didn't sell out in like 30 years. They're going to sell out even if it's Western Michigan. And I like what you said earlier about this is a scheduling tactic for them, and it is. But it also is a tactic to it is a tactic to get that extra revenue one of the years when they could have been coming to Neyland. I think it's ironic that they think they can make more money off of one of their games than it would cost to pay off Tennessee to cancel that game or cancel the pair of games, excuse me. But at the end of the day, you're thinking about it from the wrong perspective. If you're thinking, oh well, it'll get the fans out because the fans are already going to come out. Respectfully, there's nothing else to do in Lincoln, Nebraska besides go to Nebraska sports, and that's why they've been able to sell out repeatedly in a massive stadium, even though they've been really, really subpar and poor for the last 25 years. And and respectfully to Nebraska, I've mingled with Nebraska fans up here in Indianapolis at the Big Ten Championship. They were great to me. I will cheer for Nebraska against anybody but my alma maters for that reason. They have a great fan base. And, I think that all in all, they deserve better. They are the equivalent of what Tennessee was about 5 years ago. And so I want to see them do well, but I don't blame them at all for backing out. Sure, it's kind of a bitch move, but at the same time, it makes financial sense for them to get that extra game. Obviously, they're not canceling the series if they don't think that they would have more gate money than they would have from a TV contract, and having to pay off Tennessee. So all that math apparently maths for their AD, and whatever. It is what it is. It helps Tennessee also because Tennessee could have gone on the road and lost. And so at the same time, it's not all bad, and Tennessee can go and potentially find a different opponent, whether it's some FCS opponent like, you play the Mocs or play East Tennessee State or whoever, or you can go and find a team like Clemson or, Virginia Tech, one of the regional rivals from the ACC, that could fill that spot and potentially be a pretty decent home and home series with one of those teams. And so I don't think it's too terrible of a thing. It's not about football. It's never been about, it's not about getting people into the door. It's never been about that.
Yeah, it's just so frustrating because I want to see really good games because the pay games are just so boring to me, right? Like this year we won the pay games 69-3, 71-0, and 56-0, right? I want to see competitive football. Or at least if we're going to blow out teams, I want to blow out teams that would be insane to blow out, and not like, oh, Chattanooga, the team right down the road, or Kent State or UTEP. If we did that to Nebraska, that would be insane. I don't think we necessarily would do that to Nebraska, but I like last year's Tennessee team, I think beats Nebraska by 20-30 in my view, because Nebraska was not very good. And Dylan Raiola would have been eaten alive by a front seven. But still, it's just so frustrating. And then between that, and I think Matt Rule is just making me really mad this offseason. Between that and then the whole the teams are stealing our players because they're watching the spring game. He's just coming off as so whiny to me. And I'm like, okay, dude, you've had one good season at Baylor, you flamed out at Carolina with the Panthers, and now you're trying to act like you know everything at Nebraska, and you barely got across the finish line this year to get to the Pinstripe Bowl. I don't want to hear from this guy.
Yeah, as far as Nebraska goes, I don't really have a problem with Matt Rule. I think that's just kind of the state of affairs right now with all the coaches. But one more thing to consider is Indiana made the playoff because they ducked out of a series against Louisville. And I think they saw that and were like, okay, it's worth a shot. And if they believe in Matt Rule, which I would, I think he's a really good coach. It's worth a shot. And I know for people like Gus who have to jump through extreme hoops to see, sporting events, it's always nice to be able to have good ones when you're jumping through hoops to watch from Americana. But, in financial terms for the people making decisions, it seemingly makes sense, at least in my mind.
Yeah. Hey, and shout out to our former colleague, Mac Morey, for liking my TikTok live. Here, shout out to you, sir. Thank you for watching Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports. And I know coming up too in the future with all the talk right now with the Big Ten and SEC.
Sorry about the Chiefs, Mac.
They've won 3 Super Bowls in the last 5 years. 6 years.
Matt can deal with it.
Hey, I thought the same can't be said for our friend Draven Fine though, with the Dallas Cowboys. Because we had a season where we did a NFL pod the entire year, and got a lot of interesting conversation about the Cowboys. But if you don't know what we're talking about, these are some of our former colleagues and friends from Rock Solid Sports at WUTK 90.3 The Rock.
Funny enough, I never met either of those guys.
Really?
I was only ever on with Draven once. Mac was gone by the time I got there, but I've talked to him a couple times.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, you guys were in different times. Man, COVID has happened since all that happened. My memory gets fuzzy.
I guess it's because Draven literally left or kind of shine away when you arrived, Jason, because I remember vividly him during the summer of 2020. He also did some shows. That was really fun.
Yeah.
Draven Fine. I mean, I missed that guy.
Oh yeah, he was awesome. Max says, "I'm over it. I guess." Lol. Thanks, boys.
Oh, ask him if he wants to join as well. If he wants to send the link.
Yeah, get your ass on the pod, Mac.
Yeah, if you want to join, man, you hit us up. But yeah, I forgot what I was going to say. But back on the Vols in Nebraska, the SEC and Big Ten are likely going to have a scheduling agreement in the future, especially if both conferences have guaranteed spots in the college football playoff. And, that could effectively give us a game like Nebraska. And hopefully, if there is a scheduling agreement like this, we'll have guaranteed games like this anyway. So hopefully in the long run, it's not that big of a loss, and it probably isn't that big of a loss. But I just think it's indicative of the potential shortfalls we are facing because the college football playoff committee decided to reward Indiana and SMU over Alabama, South Carolina, and Ole Miss. And yes, I know all three of those teams had 3 losses, but they also played infinitely harder schedules than Indiana and SMU. So
It's just the first stepping stone towards getting a Big Ten and SEC exclusive playoff, which I believe is where we're headed in football. And honestly, I don't mind that. The college football playoff minus the SEC and the Big Ten would be a terrific show in terms of entertainment value. It would be incredible. And then you have your FCS type playoff. It's always going to be entertaining, and then the big boys play for the one that everybody cares about. It's I don't want to sound elitist, but like I watched the ACC. The ACC is crap. Okay, like Clemson, not good. Miami, decent but not great. Louisville, decent but not great.
I mean, Clemson like 5-10 years ago was an SEC caliber program though. Like they had
Yeah, but they're not anymore, and they haven't been for the last 5 or 6 years. They haven't been since Joe Burrow beat them in the championship.
I don't know. Okay, here's a hot take. I think Clemson could actually has an outside shot this upcoming season though. Like I wouldn't pick them to win anything. I just like I was impressed with how they were competed at Texas, but yeah, that's just neither here or there. Like I don't think they're winning a championship or anything like that. But
No, I don't even think they'll win the ACC.
Who's winning the ACC?
Next year is going to be Louisville. I truly believe that. I think it'll be Louisville versus Florida State again. I think Florida State will get back, and I think that I think Louisville wins it this time.
Yeah. When it comes to Florida State, like what's more likely that Florida State fires Mike Norvell or they're in contention for a championship spot? I just think that Norvell has been exposed. He got lucky with those transfers a couple of years ago, and that when you live and die with a transfer portal, I think it's going to fail more often than it succeeds.
No disagreement, but I also believe that Mike Norvell is a better coach than he showed last year. Florida State was laughable last year, but a lot of that has to do with DJ Uiagalelei being allowed to be bad. This is something that we know very well because this is the same situation that Jarrett Garantano put Tennessee in. And it's not I don't think it's a situation where you can really just say, look, that team was just that bad. I think they were put into a lot of bad situations by bad quarterback play. And, I laughed all season at Florida State. They're a rival of one of my alma maters. I enjoy their tears. I revel in their failures. But they're not that bad of a football team, and they're not that bad of a program. Mike Norvell is not that bad of a coach. I think they are more likely to compete for a championship.
I think he might be, honestly. Look, I know he just went 13-0 the year before, but the fact that he lost his team completely after missing the playoffs, the fact he couldn't rally them. I've seen so compare Norvell to Heupel, for example, in 2022. We go down to South Carolina, get blown out 63-38. we could have packed it in and go and lose to
How do
Van.
you remember that score, Nick? What brings you that tough of a memory?
Well, I may or may not have been there, but I have a knack for being at really bad road losses. Yeah, I really should be banned from ever going to a road game ever again. The Vols are 1-10 when I am in attendance on the road. I mean, it's
That's really bad.
it's so bad. Like, I just have the worst luck. Like, I need to go to like Mississippi State this year. I need to like try to break the curse or go to Kentucky or something. I need to go to a road.
I want to go to Kentucky. I think Nick also wants to go to Kentucky. Let's make that happen.
I need another win on the road. Like, if
I'm
we
undefeated. I am undefeated at Kroger Field between Tennessee, Louisville, and then coaching in a state championship.
I guess did bowl games count for road games or not?
No. So
I'm 0-1. I'm 0-1 because I only went, I think, to. Also, did Georgia Tech Tennessee game in 2017 count as a road game because Georgia Tech's from Atlanta and the game was in Atlanta or not?
I'm counting it as a neutral. I can't count that as a road game. To me,
Look-
neutral games. So I'm 1-1. I'm 2-1 in college, and so I'm 3-2 in neutral games because Georgia Tech 2017, the 2019 Gator Bowl, and then the Citrus Bowl, and then I lost at the Music City Bowl. Although I protest that loss wholeheartedly because that was robbed. That was robbed by the referees, and the only one I will accept is West Virginia in 2018.
Yeah, thanks for taking my place at that game too. If I was at that game like I was supposed to be, I would have been seething. I would have much rather been in one piece and not have to, have
I had a
surgery
thought
going
to
on.
riot at the game, but I decided I didn't want to end up in jail, so I forced myself to walk away before I ended up in the Nashville jail.
Yeah, for just for context, I sent Nick in my place to that game because I was in a car accident that broke my collarbone in half like a week before, and I was gonna tough it out and still try to go. And then I found out, I have to pass a COVID test to have my surgery, and so I wasn't chancing that. I sent Nick in my place instead, and Nick got to experience that while I watched it at home with my grandparents, who one is a lifelong Tennessee fan from Rowan County, and then my grandpa is a two-time Purdue alumni. So that was a very fun watch at home.
Yeah, just the biggest ref show I have ever seen in my life. It always happens when we play Purdue. I freaking hate Purdue so much. I hate Purdue the most SEC teams. Like, it's just the most random team. Why do we have so much trouble with Purdue? Like, it's like the U.S. men's team with Ghana. Like, why Ghana? Why Purdue? Why Loyola Chicago?
Put some respect on Ghana. At least they are talented. Yeah, the thing about Purdue though is think about how things went for each football program after that night. Tennessee went on to win the Orange Bowl, and Jeff Brom left to go coach at Louisville.
Right.
And
I will say,
Purdue's won like 3 games since.
I will say, in retrospect, taking just my orange tinted glasses off, that was like probably the most entertaining football game I've ever seen in person. And that was great. That and/or like Western Carolina, Chattanooga last year, that was 52-50. Like, just an insane
Close
game.
FCS games are incredible. Gus, when we get you back to America, I need to take you to some FCS games because they are so much fun. When I went to go
I
see
went
Aaron
one.
play,
I went one time to Chattanooga versus ETSU game. My ex-girlfriend at the time was ETSU student, and at the time Chattanooga had a Brazilian kicker and at Finley Stadium, but the environment was weird. It was a kind of rainy day. It was a November game. I think Chattanooga won that game, but yeah, I want to go to a better, a more intense environment.
So was it at Finley in Chattanooga?
Finley Stadium. Yeah, Finley
Yeah.
Stadium.
So the problem with Chattanooga when it comes to the Mocs is everyone here cares about the Vols, Georgia or Alabama more than the Mocs. There's very few people that you'll find here that care mostly about the Mocs. The Mocs are just everyone's secondary team. And we all go to Mocs games when like our team is not playing. But like if the Mocs are going up against our favorite team, then we're not going to show up. Like it's just the way it works for the Mocs. And I hate that for them, but that's just the way it works. Like the only time I've been to a Mocs game in the past like 3 years is when they played on a Vols bye. Like every other time, they're usually playing straight up against a Tennessee game. And I'm like, I'm not going to miss a Vols game to go watch the Chattanooga Mocs. No disrespect, but like, seriously.
And it's fair because, the Chattanooga Mocs are kind of like, oh, they're cute. If they make a big run in the FCS, maybe
See, like,
I'll care.
I went to a game this past Saturday. I was like, I need to go see the Mocs play because their basketball team is pretty good. I looked at the time. It was a 2 p.m. tip-off time, and that was going to be while the Vols and A&M were still playing. I'm like, nope, I'm going to watch the Vols instead. I'm sorry. Everyone, that's the way everyone literally feels here. It's really bad. Like I hate that FCS teams in the South, especially, and I think that's why FCS in the South struggles compared to the Midwest, because everyone here just cares so much about the SEC that it just they get swallowed up.
Yeah, I think the FCS kind of thrives where there's demand. For example, Montana, Wyoming, states kind of left out.
The Dakotas.
The Dakotas.
Yeah, or like really small towns, like when Appalachian State was in FCS, like Boone, North Carolina, that is the team. People don't care about UNC, NC State. They care about Appalachian State. You get to Georgia Southern, people in Statesboro, Georgia care about Georgia Southern. Chattanooga just doesn't care like that about the Mocs. It's just a culture. Like Jacksonville, Alabama, right down the road from here, they care about Jacksonville State, and of course they're FBS now. It's just you got to have a certain mentality around your town. And
and I think Gus hit it straight on the head too. The FCS thrives where there's demand, and the demand is in the places where FCS is not king. And so you've got the Dakota schools, you got Montana, Montana State, South Dakota State, North Dakota State, who are all like top 10 teams. Then you've also got South Dakota, North Dakota, and all these other, like Northern Iowa. They're all pretty good too.
I just want to give a quick shout. Nick, show your jersey because Rio Branco, one of the Rio Branco people that is in the front office, one of Rio Branco's presidents, Laureano Rabelo, is watching us. Thank you, Lau. He's saying hello, my friend Gus, and of course he's not happy with Rio Branco's, but I appreciate him watching us. And as I Vamos Tigre. Sorry to interrupt you, Jason, but I wanted to give him a big shout out. But I think your point is right, and that's why college football is so good. Even where places the big conferences can't fill, that's where the FCS comes.
Yeah. Now, there's one more thing I wanted to ask about when it came to college football, and that's Ricky Gibson announced that he's heading into the transfer portal. First and foremost,
let's get back to that. Sorry to derail that whole conversation.
I'm just like, is this just a negotiation tactic? Or like, is he like actually? Because with Jamar McCoy having his ACL, which I will fully transparent. Somehow I missed this news last month when it happened. I think it happened during the Jason Churn trial, and I just missed it completely when it happened. I didn't realize it happened. Because I know we were talking the other day, and you had mentioned that we weren't going to have McCoy, and that didn't. I was like, that's weird. Did he transfer? And I didn't think to ask about it, and then I saw someone else mention it. I'm like, wait, did I miss something? And I 100% missed that he got hurt. I just didn't know our best player on defense got hurt.
Yeah, he got hurt doing some sort of individual workout. And honestly, I think this is a negotiation tactic because if he really wanted to transfer, he would have gone somewhere and been there for spring ball. And, this feels to me like an empty threat. I would call his bluff. Sure, he may end up somewhere else, but more often than not, this is somebody that's going to be like, okay, I'm going to withdraw from the portal. You know, it was worth a shot. You know, sure, maybe you try to line him up a deal with Weigels or something. Figure it out. Hook the kid up with a Weigels deal. Get him his own milk like commercial and or a billboard or whatever, and call it a day.
I mean, it feels like a Mike Matthews situation to me, and it's just NIL. Like, something's going to have to be done. Like, you're going to have a general manager who deals with these situations one at a time like this, because
I can think of a former Colts quarterback who would do pretty well at that.
yeah, for the Stanford Cardinal, Andrew Luck, and Tennessee's going to have to get one.
I was
Because
talking about Peyton, but yeah, Andrew
yeah,
Luck is he's the first of many. I think that's going to be something that catches on very, very quickly.
yeah, because it's going to be impossible for coaches to stay on top of this. And speaking of NIL, in fact, there's still court cases related to NIL today. And actually, I want to bring this up real quick. This is from Mike Wilson. He tweeted that the NCAA argued in court today that coaches would not recruit high schoolers and only recruit at JUCO players to get more developed players if JUCO years did not count against eligibility. The judge said, quote, "I imagine they would look at both." Tony Vitello nodded. So basically, the NCAA is trying to argue that allowing JUCO players to have extended eligibility would ruin high school recruiting, which makes zero sense.
It ruins high school recruiting for kids that would have gone to like D2, D3, or JUCO to begin with. And as far as high end level, it wouldn't. But for the lower levels, yeah, I could see that. But it's not about the lower levels. When it comes to stuff like this, it's all about the money. And the money is not in D2, the money is not in D3. The money is in high-end JUCO and Division 1. And straight up, they don't care about D2 and D3 kids. They don't make them money, they don't care. And when it comes to this, Tennessee is actively involved in this. Alberto Osuna is actually having a hearing in like a week to get his eligibility potentially ruled upon. This whole situation with the kid from Vanderbilt, the quarterback, it's set a really bad precedent, but it is a precedent nonetheless. And unless that gets overturned in the meantime, I don't think this is going to stop anytime soon.
I mean, here's the thing, though. I don't honestly have a problem with it because, I mean, JUCO is not the same as college football. I mean, I know it's like a step above high school football, but to me, right, like, I think low-key makes sense to not have it count against you, because I don't know, it just makes sense to me. And it'll be annoying to play against Diego Pavia for another year. Although we shut him down pretty good this year, so and he'll have to come to Neyland next year. But I don't know. I think it's kind of a cool ruling, but I see how it's going to cause. It's kind of like how in the workforce, right? Because you have older folks who are not retiring like they used to because they can't afford to retire. So now younger folks coming into the workforce don't have jobs to fill because everyone's getting stuck. We could be heading down that same road.
And we will be, but it's going to be at the lower levels. It's not going to be at the high end Division 1 level. It's going to be at D2 and D3, whereas kids that may have gone to a Boise State, maybe gone to a Jacksonville State or one of these Group of 5 type of programs that are sometimes good and most of the time they're pretty decent. Those kids may end up going D2 now, or may end up going JUCO. Kids that would have gone D2 may go NAIA or go D3. And it's going to have a slight trickle-down effect, but it's really not going to affect the top high school recruits. The top high school recruits are always going to get recruited. And in terms of baseball, baseball is the number one producer of JUCO talent in college athletics. In terms of baseball, JUCO's already a powerhouse. Kids already go JUCO because you're draft eligible after every JUCO season. And I think that's the biggest thing with with the talent going JUCO for baseball in particular, relative to having them come in from football or whatever. But the transfer portal also keeps players, if they go and they go and play at, we'll just stick with Jacksonville State. If you go to Jack State and you ball out, you can transfer to Auburn or Alabama. It's no different than that in my view. And that's ruining college or high school recruiting also. The transfer portal is just as big of a problem as JUCO. It's not like you can pick and choose.
Yeah, and I think about this as a fan because, like, when I see a mid-major player that I really like for example, like Eagle Staff at North Dakota, or that guy we talked about at MTSU, or the guy from Montana, from
Yeah,
earlier
Money,
this
whatever his name is from Montana, I want him.
like,
Vol.
no, it's no longer just like, oh, I wonder how far they can take that program. It's, oh, how much could we offer them to bring him to our team? I want that guy on my team.
Yeah,
And
that was me talking about Evansville's players last year after the Super Regional.
And like as Tennessee fans, like we're one of the elites in college athletics. So like we're in a position to just go and poach other players, but is our short-term gain detrimental to the rest of college sports? Because it feels to an extent it kind of feels like it might be, but at the same time, like it's making my personal enjoyment of college athletics higher, but I know it's coming at the expense of all these other programs.
Look, I will be the one. I don't care. I'll disagree. College sports have already been in trouble because they have been an extension. They have been more of a baby pro sport league than they have been a big time high school league. So let me kind of elaborate on what I mean. People look at the word amateur and think, okay, this is an extension of high school sports, but it's not. This is actually like college sports are actually an extension of pro sports. And in that context, this makes sense. In that context, it's I mean, it's par for the course. And as far as going and poaching other players, that's going to happen regardless. If if they wanted to transfer, they would. They had grad transfers for a while, and before that, you just had to sit out, and kids would do that. They didn't care. This also, you know, if you have all the elite talent funnel to the top few schools, okay, so what? You're already, I'm already talking about, okay, well, the football tournament is going to end up being just the SEC and the Big Ten anyway. All of that does is provide a little bit more stability for programs at the lower levels to go and recruit. They may not recruit as talented of players, but they're going to have more stability eventually when these players just stop going there to begin with.
Yeah, it's going to be just interesting to see how all this litigation goes. Go ahead.
I think with all the perspective you guys bring, uh, I think uh, college football as a whole, not only the big schools, but the mid schools, the FCS schools, they're going to have to invest in a front office. Like they're going to have entire front offices. Somebody that only deals with NIL, somebody that only deals with transfer portal. Because that's why college football coaches, it's funny? Like now I see why they're trying to, for example, canceling spring games because they want to have less things to worry about because they have so much on their shoulders with NIL, with transfer portal, with all that kind of. You become neurotic almost.
That's exactly why Andrew Luck got the job at Stanford the way that he did. It's going to revolutionize the way that we see how football programs are operated. No longer do you have a CEO like Nick Saban who is just going to, hire people and delegate tasks and oversee everything. You're going to have a guy like Nick Saban hiring somebody to do all this backroom stuff so that he can focus on coaching. And I think personally, I think that's going to benefit somebody like a Dabo Swinney type who doesn't want to invest in the transfer portal to begin with. I think that's going to help coaches like him. Although I do think Dabo is a fraud personally, but you guys understand what I mean. These coaches that don't want to hammer the portal are going to be the ones that benefit the most because they can just have somebody else look at it for them and they just focus on coaching. It's going to be just like having a recruiting coordinator for your high school recruits.
Right. I wonder, like, with Tennessee, like, what Heupel's, like, how he's going to handle that, because, I don't know what he's like on the recruiting trail, because I feel like he seems to be a pretty relatable recruiter, but obviously I think any coach would benefit from having someone who can be the lead on that. So it's going to just be a fascinating times in the NCAA. Now, speaking to kind of transition to sports that are ongoing, and Jason, we'll say it, in college basketball, there could be a pretty big upset brewing right down the road from you at Hinkle Fieldhouse. It is 56-56 as St. John's is tied with Butler with 7.
See, I wish I would have gone to this game because that would have been fun to wear my Louisville gear and cheer on Rick Pitino. It would have been fun. Butler is kind of a pain in the ass to get to, so all things said, I'm really not that disappointed. But Butler's a tough place to play. Hinkle Fieldhouse is a beautiful arena. It's a tough place, tough environment to win in, and I think Rick Pitino is going to get it done. I mean, Rick Pitino is a top 5 college coach of all time. He is proving that the game has not passed him by taking a very poor St. John's team and turning them around almost immediately. I'm very biased, and I don't care.
Right.
That is the way that it is.
Also, Kentucky's struggling at Oklahoma right now, down a point, but over 10 minutes to go. The transitive property just does not work at all because Tennessee beat Oklahoma by 20. Yeah, we got swept by Kentucky. Makes no sense.
And Arkansas dominating Texas at home, 61-52.
Yeah, Arkansas is going to end up being a tournament team after it looked like they were kind of dead there for a little while in January, but they've gotten it back together.
It's almost like we've seen this movie before with the same characters in a different setting.
Right. It feels very Kentucky because it's Coach Cal. Yeah, Butler now has the lead. Oklahoma has the lead. Last night we saw Georgia upset Florida. It was just a really weird, chaotic game. I mean, Georgia blew a 20-point lead, but then they came back with Blue Kane hitting that free to win the game instead of Red Abel. Well, okay, my friends, like when he came to Knoxville, we wanted to call him Red Abel instead of Blue Kane because the whole story, because he's from Knoxville. We were making fun of him, but big win for Georgia. They're back on the bubble, but and obviously our basketballs. Last night they played a basketball game that they won. That's really all I can say about it. Although Saturday's game at Texas A&M was awesome. That was a fantastic win on Saturday.
Look, last night's game wasn't pretty, but it's exactly what you want to see going into the tournament. Going into March, you have to be able to win ugly, and that's exactly what the Vols did last night. That is an example of survive in advance. And that gives me a lot more confidence going into March than I would have had, at noon yesterday. And I mean that truly, because I'm somebody that has always doubted what this team could do in March. Do you have the pieces to be able to grind out a win? Do you have somebody that can go and manufacture a bucket when the times get tough? And yesterday, this team managed to do it. So it's in there. That capability is in there. But with that, though, I need to get going to bed. It's not quite 1 a.m. like it is for Gus, and mad respect to that.
But because it's gonna be a long night for me, man. A long night after the loss that Rio Branco had.
Yeah. Well, we are sad to hear that Rio Branco lost.
Yeah, it's definitely wasn't a good day here in America, at least for Rio Branco fans. But I think I was telling Nick, like, you guys are the lucky charm, because I think the last time I want to say, like, Rio Branco got a good win when you guys watch it. I think I remember, like, Like it was the 4-0 game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
you got to remind us to watch.
Yeah, I think I need to send you a link or something because the last time you both watched, Rio Branco had a great game. You guys need to come back and watch it again.
I think it's Nick though, because the one game Nick was in attendance for Indy 11 was the biggest win in club history. So I think the responsibility falls squarely on his shoulders.
Yeah,
Oh
apparently.
yeah, I agree.
I can't see a Vols win on the road, but I give all the luck in the world to your soccer teams.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
But
I'll
all
take
right,
it.
guys. Thanks for letting me crash the pod, boys. I appreciate
Oh,
it.
anytime, anytime.
I appreciate you guys not getting too mad at me for it. I got things to say. So I'll
No,
see y'all.
anytime.
I'll see y'all later. I'll stay in the comments till I fall asleep, but I gotta go to bed. I've been up since 4 a.m. So
Yes. All right, that was Jason Wire joining us to talk some college basketball and college football. And speaking of the basketballs, obviously they got two big wins. I do want to say though, A&M just lost to Vanderbilt tonight, so Vanderbilt with another huge win on the road, probably securing their tournament spot tonight. However, the Vols are getting ready for a massive game at home against Alabama on Saturday. And to me, this game could be for a 1 seed. And this game probably is for a 1 seed, Gus. I mean, this one is massive. Tennessee swept Alabama last year, but Alabama made it to the Final Four. Tennessee did not. And as any Kentucky fan on the internet will tell you, Tennessee still has not made the Final Four ever. So just how big is this game for Tennessee? How big is this game for Rick Barnes? Does it ultimately not matter? Is it a regular season game? Or, with the possibility of Tennessee, maybe getting a 1 seed, is this game the biggest game of the year?
I mean, Tennessee has been down this road before. Of course, it's going to be a big test. I think this 1 seed kind of thing is the same argument that probably kind of in a smaller scale to the Final Four because if I'm correctly, Tennessee also never been a first seed, right?
We've never been a 1 seed.
Yeah. So maybe cracking this, glass ceiling will help the other one.
Maybe just kind of psychologically. However, I really like our style of play when it comes to Bama. Last year we really are able to kind of suffocate them on the free. Kentucky, those games were concerning in terms of of how Kentucky was able to hit a lot of frees. But hopefully, with the lessons learned from that game combined with our experience last year, and additionally, the match to watch here is Zakai Ziegler versus Mark Sears. Ziegler totally owned Mark Sears last year in both games against Alabama in terms of forcing him to have a lot of turnovers because Mark Sears, he can shoot the ball. He can be really effective, but at the same time, he's a very turnover prone, which plays right into the hands of Zakai Ziegler. I think Ziegler has a massive game. I think the Vols are going to win. Jason says it doesn't matter. Seeding doesn't matter as much as tuning up does. You have to go through everyone to get to the Final Four anyway. Just prepare to go out and win. And Laura Reno said Gus and Rio Branco forever and ever. Gus,
And Nick too. Show your jersey, Nick. Yeah, Nick too.
forever and ever. Rio Branco, almost Tigre.
Yeah. See, Nick Hill always Tigre as well. And thanks, Lau, for watching this late as well. I appreciate. He's one of the greatest. He's one of the good lawyers here in the city of America. And I'll tell you, he's a nice guy. But in terms of city, the argument that Jason, made it. Of course, that's the beauty of March Madness. You want to be a first seed, of course, because that will bring you probably a team probably weaker, but that's not guaranteed that's gonna put you in a Sweet 16 or Elite 8.
Exactly, and it's all about what you do past that point. So just go out there and play wherever they place us on Selection Sunday, where I will be, I think, a 2 seed at the absolute worst. So, I mean, Tennessee, it's basically all about tuning up. It's all about getting ready to go because it's about to be go time. It's about to be March. And let's break some generational curses. Why don't we?
Yeah.
All I would say. So on the ladies' side, real quick, just want to shout out the Lady Vols. They continue to win over the past week. They got big wins at home against Alabama, number 18, 88-80. And then they were trailing by double digits at Florida on Sunday, but were able to rally back at an 8-point win there. They are now 21-6 and currently ranked number 11 in the country. How about that? They're almost a top 10 team in year one under Kim Caldwell. I mean, you just have to give it up to Kim, man. She has given birth and has turned around this program this season.
I saw a report on Facebook, and it's true that Ohio State was trying to lure her with a $13 million contract, and she turned down.
$13 million for a women's basketball coach is wild.
Yeah, I know. Maybe I don't know how real this story was on Facebook, but I wouldn't be surprised if other teams are interested in her, because she show a grit, determination, and she literally is turning a program around.
Right, and this is the last regular season week for tennis for the women. The ladies play at number 15 Kentucky tomorrow, and then they have their final game on Sunday before the SEC women's tournament next week. So that game is home against Georgia on Sunday. So it looks like the Lady Vols to me are in a very good spot to host the first two rounds of the NCAA tournament, which is a big, big deal. So shout out to them. Also, want to shout out a legend of women's basketball, Diana Taurasi. She formally announced her retirement today after 20 years in the WNBA. Of course, she was a legend at Connecticut. Obviously, I don't like UConn basketball, but she is a legend. She's one of the greatest players to ever go through that school. So congratulations to her and a happy retirement to Diana Taurasi, one of the greats of women's basketball.
Also, shout out to her. I mean, she made an impact on the sport, definitely.
Jason said maybe $13 million over the life of the contract, no, not per year. Tennessee could offer more, and Jason says, "Boo, Diana Taurasi." So,
thanks for the. I know some about $13 million. That was
that makes sense.
Yeah, that made sense. Thanks for the correction.
Yeah, she's not a fan of Diana Taurasi, so it is what it is. She's not better than Tamika Catchings or Candace Parker. So just leaving that one out. College baseball, Tennessee baseball is still undefeated, and AJ Russell is back. The pitcher who was out for basically all of last year with the Tommy John, who had to have a Tommy John surgery. Missed the whole tournament last year. Was not part of that national title team. He was back yesterday and just managed to strike out the entire side in 18 pitches, and is pitching in the mid to upper 90s fastball. So, I mean, it's the embarrassment of riches that Tennessee has in their baseball team is crazy. I mean, this guy is throwing 97, 98, and he has probably about the sixth highest velocity on this baseball team. I mean, it's insane what this Tennessee baseball team is going to be able to do, especially when you consider that other teams like Texas A&M are busy losing to teams like Texas State, but somehow they're still ranked number one ahead of Tennessee. Make that make sense. I mean, Tennessee should be ranked number one in baseball until proven otherwise.
They're the only undefeated. They are the only team undefeated in the top 5.
Yeah, I mean, and we're literally the defending champion. I know the schedule hasn't exactly been impressive yet. Now this week they do go to Houston, where they play Oklahoma State, Arizona, Rice. So there's some better competition coming up this week, but still, if they sweep this weekend, they better be number one next week. All I've got to say on that. Some other
I guess somebody is still not asleep.
Jason, I figured you wanted to hop back in and talk some baseball real quick. Jason,
you got me there. Here's the thing about college baseball rankings. They go by series wins, and the reason being is it's really difficult to sweep any series, let alone sweep every series. And so until you lose a series, you're really not going to have somebody dropping in the rankings. Midweek games also don't really matter when it comes to that because most of them are tune-up games anyway, where you throw a guy who is somebody who he's not in your rotation. It's somebody that can come in and potentially play for you in the postseason, but it's somebody that's just your fourth guy, not going to be a weekend starter in your conference series most of the time. And with that said, Tennessee's 8-0 now, and so if we get to 20-0 or maybe higher, at that point maybe it's time to have a conversation about about jumping Tennessee over the other teams in the rankings. I think this is more indicative of the rankings to begin the season not being great than it is indicative of the rankings week to week, because if you counted every single loss that a team has, especially in the middle of a series, rankings would fluctuate. It would be complete insanity. And so for that reason, I don't mind that they go by series wins because, like I said, it's really difficult to sweep any series in baseball, let alone sweep every series. I mean, all you got to do is look back at Evansville last year. Evansville was a very, very, very tough series, and Tennessee did not sweep them. And if that series happened this weekend, people would be laughing at Tennessee for losing a game, just like we are laughing at A&M losing to Texas State, or laughing at whoever for losing to whoever. Baseball's a tough game like that.
Well, that's certainly fair. And again, that's just me being a novice of college baseball and I wanted to overact to every single individual result like it's college football. But I mean, as you said, we can't do that. But still, point stands, at least to me, I think Tennessee's better than those other teams. And I think they should have been ranked number one preseason.
No question. The reigning national champions, they brought in the best portal class as well, including guys like Alberto Osuna, free him. Guys like Gavin Keelan. Several players have joined, and let's see, Ryan Combs.
Clark, the true freshman. I mean, that bomb he had on Saturday to blow the Samford game wide open on Saturday.
That's why I was telling you to make sure you were watching the game.
Man, that's crazy.
So bases loaded. He comes up to the plate. I call Nick to make sure he's watching this game because I know something good's about to happen. That kid can flat out hit. But ranking Texas A&M number one after losing the entire staff minus the guy who is currently their head coach, who I believe was their hitting coach last year, losing the entire staff to Texas, and then losing a lot of their recruiting class to Texas, ranking them number one is stupid. And respectfully, like Jace Laviolette and Gavin Grahovac, Caden Kent, they are stars. No question. They are star players. And A&M is still a terrific team. They're going to be just fine with this other guy coaching. However, ranking them number one is recklessly irresponsible for a lot of reasons, not limited to the ones that I just mentioned. But it is what it is. All you care about is winning when it comes to the postseason, and I could really honestly not care any less what Tennessee is ranked until it comes to the top 16 and top 8 seeds when it comes to tournament time. You just want to get into the dance first of all, and then you want to be able to host both a regional and super regional when you get there. And so, with that said, go ahead, be my guest. Let Tennessee waste away in fourth. I don't care.
It's really interesting. And plus, there's just so many rankings, too. Like, why does there have to be like 20 different rankings?
D1 baseball is the only one that matters.
D1. All right. That's the only one we will consider because it's just confusing beyond all belief, to say the least.
D1 baseball has the best poll, and it's really the only one that matters. It's the one that is most accurate when it comes to your top 16 seeds come the postseason. So Well, it's like soccer. You got a zillion different polls, but the one that matters is the one that matters. And in the case of baseball, it's D1 baseball.
Yeah. Tennessee certainly will have, I think, plenty of opportunities to climb up to that one ranking at some point. But I remember Tony Vitello ranting after the Evansville series saying that like he doesn't even look at rankings.
Yeah, the only time that it matters is when you're hosting a super regional or not. You just want to be in the top 8 when the postseason starts. That's the only ranking that matters, honestly.
Absolutely. Well, I think Tennessee's going to be there.
No question. It would take something. It would take a cataclysm of extraordinary circumstances for Tennessee to not be in the top 8 when it comes to tournament time. But hopefully that helps you understand why the rankings are the way they are. All right, for real this time. I'm gonna hop off of here. I'll stay in the comments till I fall asleep. But thanks again, y'all, for letting me crash the podcast a second time. Go Big
Anytime,
Orange, go Cards.
literally anytime.
Absolutely. Of
Let's
course, Jason has watched so much college baseball. He knows way more about college baseball than I do. So I am a bandwagoner. I only started watching 4 years ago.
College baseball is so much fun. I love college baseball.
Some guy on Facebook tried to claim that Jason was a bandwagoner who's only watched the last 2 years. I mean, that's me. That's not him.
Man, so in my entire time at Louisville, in 4 years, I missed something to the effect of 8 games over 4 years, 8 home games of Louisville baseball, and one of those I was not in the ballpark, but I was standing up on the bridge behind left field because I was suspended from the game for getting ejected the night before. So,
No.
uh, okay. So, do you want the long story or the short story, Gus?
Short story.
I figured. Me too. Short story is I had a friend who was our catcher at Louisville. Guy from Florida State had a dirty play, tried to take him out, take his knee out sideways. I was sitting right behind home plate where the student section was, and I'm chirping at him, calling him all sorts of profane and derogatory things for that Bush League play. And he's up screaming at our catcher, who, like I said, is a friend of mine, and I'm defending my guy, and he's talking about, oh, you got a big mouth, you want to fight, and I said, there's the parking lot, I'll meet you by the bus, MFer, like let's do it. And so we were both escorted out of that stadium. This was in the 9th inning, so the game was about to end. Like we were preparing to square up, and so I was ejected from the game. Police escorted me to my car. Police escorted this guy to the bus. Like it was a whole thing. But another friend of mine who played, his name is Cade McClure. He plays for the San Francisco Giants, I believe now. He was pitching the next day. Very first pitch that guy saw from Cade, 99 to the back next day. So baseball players take care of themselves. And in the case of Colby Fitch getting taken out by this guy from Florida State, he took 99 to the back for his transgressions. So this guy from Florida State had some anger problems, though. He actually also got arrested for taking a baseball bat into the Florida State library and destroying a bunch of stuff when he was drunk. So who's the real loser here?
Florida State doesn't have exactly the best history with athletes and staying out of legal trouble.
Yeah, they're second only to Georgia in that respect. But with that said,
Three Shoes University.
Yeah, with with that said, I'll see y'all. I'll see y'all next time.
Yeah, that's Jason Wyrick recounting his stories of college baseball. Yeah, so a lot more to come of our defending reigning national champions. Really quickly here, just to begin to wrap things up, the NFL is considering some overtime rule changes. They kind of want to think about perhaps giving both teams an opportunity to possess the ball in overtime and not just the team that gets possession first. So that's something that they are thinking about maybe going
finally, that was should be implemented after the AFC Championship game where Patrick Mahomes did not have opportunity to have a possession.
Right. Well,
Long overdue.
yeah. Well, I mean, they already changed it for the postseason, but it's the same way still in the regular season. They're also looking at maybe having automatic field sensing in the ball, so it would allow them to determine first downs or not. So that's interesting. Luka got to finally play the Mavs last night, and it was certainly interesting to watch. Now, I will say this: I tried to watch a little bit of this game, and man, both teams were just jacking up 1,000 threes. Like, it was just boring to watch. And it kind of explains why the NBA ratings are falling apart, because the product is just not that good. But Luka last night had a triple double. He had 19 points, 15 rebounds, 12 assists as the Lakers beat the Mavs 107-99. So I'm sure that was a very emotional win for him. And, he had a big one. And as that's just pointed out to me, ESPN no longer broadcasts in MLB. That's a major story.
Yeah, I know. Like they have been partners since 1990. Sunday Night Baseball has been a feature, kind of like a almost not in the same popularity, but kind of in the same hallmark in terms of Sunday Night Football. But Rob Manfred said something that is true. Like, why are we giving us, why we have a partnership when our partner treats us very poorly? Like, compare to, the sports shows on ESPN. What league they talk more, MLB or NBA?
NBA, 100%.
So yeah, so how Ron Manfred just said, stick to the league that you love. Like, we will find some that we will connect with baseball fans our way. We find our other partners, Fox, Amazon, Apple, MLB Network. They find ways to connect with with baseball players. It's not like the '90s where they need a ESPN.
Exactly, and honestly, I can't believe I'm even praising Rob Manfred here, but Manfred also said, ESPN is just, they're not as relevant anymore. They're a dinosaur. They're losing revenue. They're losing viewers, and the MLB needs to go where the viewers are. So I agree with that. Make it easier to watch. That's all I ask. All right. Last topic here. NASCAR had some controversy this weekend. They were at Atlanta, probably my current favorite track on the schedule. It was a great race. Christopher Bell won a nail biter. But my problem is NASCAR needs to decide whether they're going to. So, guys, I don't know how much you've watched recently, but on these super speedway tracks like Daytona, Talladega, Atlanta, there's often crashes on the last lap, and NASCAR has to decide whether or not they're going to throw the caution on the last. For the caution, because if you throw the caution as the cars are on the last lap before they make it to the start finish line, the race automatically ends, and whoever the winner and whoever is in the lead time of the caution.
Oh no, it didn't count.
No, it didn't count. I know exactly what you're looking at. Texas, Arkansas.
Yeah. Oh my God, Arkansas had a double-digit lead, and he almost blew it at regulation.
Yeah, it's going to go to overtime. They're Texas and Arkansas. But what I was going to say on the NASCAR thing is last week at the Daytona 500, NASCAR, there's a crash that happened on the backstretch, and they allowed the racers to race back to the line to fight out for the win. On Saturday in the second tier Xfinity Series, there was a crash on the backstretch in Atlanta. They let them race back to the line for the win. And then Sunday, with what was going to be an incredible finish, probably a 3-wide finish again at Atlanta, like there was last year, they threw the caution in turn 3, even though the crash was way behind the leaders. And NASCAR said it was, quote, for safety. I'm sorry. This is ridiculous. When it's the white flag, when the race is on the line, I get it that you want to get to drivers who just crashed and everything else. But can you give the racers 15 seconds to race back for the win? I mean, we're sitting here watching these races for 3-4 hours. People are driving hours to the racetrack to see a great race. And in that great race, they want to see a great finish. Let the drivers finish the race. Don't throw the yellow flag and rob people of a chance to see a great finish, because we were robbed of a great finish. on Sunday. And it's just so frustrating. And it's just honestly like super speedway racing is fun. It's interesting. Like it's just a spectacle. Like Daytona, Talladega, like those are the two most famous tracks in NASCAR for a reason, because of how big those tracks are, how big the wrecks can be, and just a spectacle of what those races can be. But the problem is these races are ending under caution all the time because they keep on wrecking at the end. So either the drivers have to learn to back off and find ways to not crash into each other so we can see green flag finishes, or NASCAR is going to have to change their philosophy, because right now it makes that type of racing seem like a clown show and just pointless. Because like, how are we supposed to have a race if it's never going to be allowed to finish under green because the drivers keep on crashing into each other at the end? Like, it's just ridiculous to me.
Yeah, definitely. There's gonna have some reviews to be done. I agree. I think a sport should be finished on a high, not on a bureaucratic decision. I agree
It
with
feels
you.
like NASCAR's had to make a decision literally in every single race. It's just, I don't envy NASCAR because that's a tough decision, but man, it's just frustrating because I want these races to end in a green. And of course, they go to Circuit of the Americas this year, or this week rather, in Austin, Texas. It's the F1 track. Also, IndyCar back this week as well at St. Petersburg. Because IndyCar is starting their new TV contract with Fox. It'll be interesting to see how those TV broadcasts compare to NBC. Also, just to wrap up real quick, college basketball scores. St. John's ultimately defeated Butler. Texas, Arkansas is in overtime. Kentucky is up by a point with 45 seconds left at Oklahoma as they try to avoid an upset there. So a lot of great college basketball happening tonight. But that is all the time that we have for this February 26th edition of Two Countries, Two Americas All Sports. For Gus Amazelli and Americana Sao Paulo, Brazil, I'm Nick Hill in Chattanooga, Tennessee, United States. Thank you so much for joining us for this very, very special podcast episode.